Hey guys, thanks for joining me in the studio. You know, one of the fastest and most powerful ways that you can improve your painting is to get a critique of one of your paintings by a professional artist. And I know this because I've given thousands of student critiques over the years, and I've taught in loads of countries all around the world, live workshops and online workshops. And of course, what I try to do in all my painting lesson videos is to give you all of the knowledge that I have of painting. But there is nothing quite like having a professional artist take one of your paintings and look at it and tell you exactly what you've done right and what could be done better. G'day Jay, thanks for your painting. This is a really nice design, and yeah, you can't go past that castle as a beautiful subject. And yeah, it's been nicely put together in Photoshop or whatever you've used. It's looking good. So you've mentioned that you feel like you're getting the hang of values, but you're finding it hard to translate that into color, and you want to say more with less. So you want your brushwork to describe detail without describing detail, which is one of my goals for my painting as well. I guess we'll start off with the design. Great to see that you're using Photoshop or whatever to design with. It's such a powerful tool. This design looks good to me. The only thing I would say is this sheep here, this sheep here seems to be bigger than that sheep there, or at least the same size, but it's on a level that is, let's draw a horizontal line across. Yeah, so if you look at the feet of this one are higher, right? And because it's further away in the painting, these little distances count for much more depending on how close they are to the horizon. Like that little distance there, when you're this close, it doesn't mean anything really. But back this deep into the painting, just having its feet that much higher than the feet of the sheep over there means that this sheep should be smaller, because that distance, that gap there, the height of this line will equal, I don't know, maybe a 50-meter distance, something like that, which will mean that that sheep will be considerably smaller. Might actually be more like that size sheep, and that size sheep is probably too big for that distance. So those are just a tiny little drawing thing. Unless, of course, this sheep is up on a raised mound, in which case, yeah, that's a different story. It's a nice idea having this trail through, but it looks a little man-made in your painting. It looks like it's been plowed through with these straight edges, so just be aware of that yeah, just to roughen up the edges more so you can make clumps, you know, that come out into it and break the edge, and also, you know, use more than just those colors in the forming of that path. Just throw some grays in there, or little bits of green here and there, to just all to help to break that edge, right? And you end up with a much more natural sort of a sheep trodden path rather than something that a tractor has plowed. Also, yeah, I kind of like the fact that this path in the photo is not going all the way out, and you could actually bring it back around and head it back towards the castle, which would be nice. And in fact, I'd probably S-bend it. I'm a big fan of S-bend, so I'd probably do something like that. Whereas this one just cuts across and ends up taking you out of the scene, which is not such a great idea. Although you could say, you know, that sheep there is helping the eye up there, which is good. But yeah, there's nothing to stop you running that path under the sheep as well, you know. Maybe continue back there, something like that. Let's see. Just looking at this sheep here, you know, it comes across as a little bit of a wolf shape. I'm not sure if that's the pointiness of the ear or the curve of it. I'm not sure, but anyway, it needs a little work on that. Guess it needs more of a face down there. I don't know, maybe put that back foot down a bit lower. Yeah, in terms of the composition as a whole, I'll show you what I'd do to it. Oops. Put this one on top, make a duplicate. Okay, because I think a problem with this composition is that it's just too tightly cropped. And so what I'd like to see is, actually, there's a smarter way. What I'd like to see is a bit more space. Which you have in the photo to some extent, a little bit more than your painting. Something like that. Just gives them room to breathe, you know. So I'll just okay, I'll just blur these edges out. Okay, merge that down. Okay, so oops, so this before and after. See what I'm saying? It just gives the little more breathing room around the animals on the edge of the canvas. But doing that's created a bigger space up the top, which, you know, there's not a lot happening in there, so unless you want to throw some clouds in there at that point, you're probably better off to raise that and create more of a foreground lead in and crop off the top, which I'll do like this. Okay. Merge that down. So before, after, before, after. Another thing is you've got the castle smack bang in the middle the center line of that canvas. So I would actually move it over, just because it creates equal space division, which is kind of boring and predictable. So I'll grab that. And move it back. Either there, could move it over there. It feels, I think, better there because it balances out that path in that case. Okay, so there we go. Oh. Okay, so that's, yeah, that feels a bit better. So you got that balanced by that. Okay. Okay, so that's the basic setup. Now, I guess let's think about atmospheric perspective. If you look at the photograph, these are all quite, like if you look at this color here, the darkest dark in there. Oh, if you look at that color, it's a dark blue-gray, right? See where it is on the scale. It's not down there. It's right about there. So it's like a, I don't know, almost a 2/3 of the way from white to black. Or if you look at your darkest dark in here, well, you got little spots of it in there that are really quite dark. So that darkness doesn't belong that distance away, right? It's too dark. So what I'm going to do is just lighten all of that. So see, as soon as you make it darker, it just jumps forward, right? And if you make it lighter, it sinks back into the painting. So I'll make it lighter first, and then I'll make it bluer. Okay, now I'll change to blues. Alright, take some of the red out. Okay, so that's before and after. So you can see how before it was competing with the sheep, right? You got a lot of colors there that are the same as the colors in the sheep. Whereas if you make it lighter and make it more blue so it sinks back into the atmosphere, then it stops competing. And of course I have to change the surround to match the sky. So I'll do that. So it's all very rough, but you get the idea. Okay. Another thing you could do to send it even further back is to lighten the bottom of it a bit like this. Watch this. Right, so then it's sort of just rising out of the mist, and that's a nice way to separate background features from foreground features. And I do that a lot when I'm painting mountains. I tend to mist the bottom of them where they intersect with the mountain that's in front of them. And you'll see that in pretty much all mountain paintings that you look at. It's just a very simple way to help separate planes of distance. Another thing you could do is, see the hills in the background there? They're a really nice feature. So I don't know why you minimize them in your painting, because they are such a nice thing. They help break this big empty space of the sky. So let's just add that back in. In fact, we could even accentuate them some more, make them a little larger. Okay, and let's see, you're creating distance with this this light blue, but now that I've darkened these hills and accentuated them, that light blue seems like out of place, like it's a frost or something on the grass. So what I'll do is just take some of that green and make it a bit bluer and a bit grayer over this direction. Let's see how that looks. Let's see if that, yeah, so that's helping it work its way into the background. Another thing you can do is, you don't really need this hard horizon here, right? This is a hard line. Because any sort of hard line brings attention to itself, and it's not really something that needs attention brought to it. So you could in actual fact missed out this whole area. Just add more light blue. Just make the whole thing this beautiful transition from one color to the next color. Okay. Now let's take another look at the sky while we're there. So if you look at your photo, you've got a big light glow over here, you know, coming out in this direction. And you've attempted that in the painting, but not really strong enough, in my opinion. It's so you've got a variety here, but not so much variety there, right? So I just want to change that. Because clearly on the faces of the castle there is a strong light from that side, so why not make more of that? And even do a hue change as well, make it a warmer light, because it looks like that's what you're after, is a warm light anyway. So alright, and in which case you can change the hue of those of the distant hills to a more of a red. Something like that. So it's you know, a nicer sense of light coming from that area now. Could also do something a little more interesting with this space here, maybe a little lighter. Maybe. Let's see. Maybe bring some sunlit clouds into play. It's all just playing around, trial and error. It looks like you already had that sort of idea, but just didn't carry it to fruition. Just a little more interest to the sky. Now, also you could raise the hill up here so that it doesn't sort of slope off the canvas, so it doesn't drain off canvas, and this way the sort of directs the eye back into the sheep. Could do the same on the other side as well. Actually, there's a little more interest in that hill, so build that in. Makes it just a more interesting shape. Some of the light on that castle, it's not sure there whether it's in light or dark, so I'm just going to make sure it knows. Yep. Okay. All right. What else could we do? All right, let's look at the light on the sheep. Doesn't seem to be as strong as the light on the castle, or yeah, so the shadows aren't as deep. So let's look at darkening those a bit. Darker grey colour. And just let's see, that's before, after, before, after. So, oops, let's make another layer there and darken up those, some of those shapes. Particularly here, see these two values are very similar, and it sort of looks like you got a two sheep that are joined together, like physically. So we're going to separate those with value. And this one here as well. So just try and be very clear about where your darks and your lights are and make that quite obvious to the viewer. Similarly here. Oh, I guess that sheep is this one back here, yeah? So you've just enlarged it. Okay. All right. Shadows on this side as well. All right, good. Yeah, put some. Okay. Sorry, there's a little bit of fiddling around here without a lot of talking, but I'll move on in a second. Okay, what you can also get here is a highlight on these sheep. So I'll make it a little lighter and a little warmer. And so look for the angles, the planes on the sheep that would be most directly facing the sun. Just highlight those, and that's going to help create much more of a 3D feel to them. Okay, see how they have a more roundy feel to them now. So basically I've intensified the shadows, deepened the shadows, and given them a little highlight. And if you look at before and after, you can see that they're a much rounder looking sheep now. And I've been a bit, finicky with the way that I've done that with a little pen, a little brush, but you can achieve that with a larger brush with actual paint. It's just a matter of being careful with your brush strokes, and I don't mean careful with a small brush, I mean deliberate about which large brush strokes you use to create light and shade and to create form. Just stopping and thinking a bit more about it. Okay, so I'll merge that down, so that's before and after at this point. Before and after. Alright, now let's look at this path. Now, if the light's coming from the right, then main shadows are going to be cast this side. And so the light will be on this side of the grasses. Yeah, you get a little banking up like that. And yeah, let's just try and make all this a bit more natural looking, but more natural shapes. And what I'd probably do in this case is run a soft shadow across the foreground. So let's see, something like that. Do this with a lot of my paintings. So if you look at before and after, it's creating this, by putting that soft shadow in the foreground, it's creating a spotlight effect on the sheep themselves. So it's another way to direct the eye to the sheep. Okay. And yeah, let's strengthen some of those shadows through there. And perhaps this sheep would be casting a shadow onto that sheep. So think this could do with a bit more grey in it actually. Looks too colourful for a dirt path. Alright, so just trying to get a natural path shape in there without it being too obvious. A bit more light on the path. Just easing down into that soft shadow. So let's look at before and after. Before, after. Okay. Something else. Could have some dark accents in the foreground here. Not too much contrast because then it'll take away from the sheep. Some little light accents or flowers or whatever. Maybe. And possibly a dark shadow across the back of the field there. Let's just try that out. Yeah, that's nice because that helps spotlight the sheep again. So let's see before and after. Yeah, that's nice. Maybe a little more shadow on that side of the sheep. Let's see. So let's see before and after. Before, after. Before, after. Okay. Another thing I might try doing is just intensifying the shadow at the top and the bottom. See how that looks. So before, after, and I'll set that to a different sort of a combination. Okay, before, after, before, after, before, after. Yep, quite like that. So I'll merge that down. Before, after. Before, after. Yep. I'll just tidy it up a bit. Trim the edges. Okay, and let's see what happens if we play with some overall settings here. Maybe the curves. Bring a little more. Oh, that's adding more red to the lights. That's pretty nice. Let's do overall levels. So that's, let's see, the light's getting lighter. Quite like that, makes it a bit cheerier. It's lightening the whole thing, the mid-ranges. More contrast. So interesting, eh, how you can make it look. Quite like that, adding warmth to the lights. And let's see if we can add some cools to the shadows. a little bit. Okay, so before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after. Yeah, much of a much. How about some little birds as well? Okay, let's add some more little birds. Okay, and maybe some highlights and some flowers in the light. Something like that. And if there's going to be this much green in the sunlit grass here, we want to add some of that to the sides of the sheep. I'm putting it in here, but just a little bit reflected light, right? Okay. Maybe a few more speckles in the foreground. Just a little bit of texture there. Yeah, something like that. What else we got? We've got a little bit of outlining happening on the castle, so I'll just get rid of some of that. Oops. All right. Yeah. So there's some changes you could look at making. That's how I'd basically go about doing a design for this. Just looking at all the different options. So let's look at before and after. Before, after. Before, after. Okay, so hope you learned a lot through that, just looking at the way I design this, just tweaking things around, moving big shapes to balance big shapes, you know, with the castle obviously, moving that across to here and having that balanced by this, not having that path running all the way off and not being so straight. Intensifying the darks in the sheep and also adding highlights to create more roundness of form, and adding more interest to the sky, giving the elements more space from the edge of the canvas, and giving them room to breathe, adding a soft shadow and more of a lead-in space, and that soft shadow helping create this spotlight effect on the primary center of interest, and then a shadow in the background separating and the mist in the background, creating a separation between the primary center of interest and the castle, which is the secondary center of interest. So yeah, let's have one more look at before and after. Before, after. Okay, hope that helps. Thanks for watching and happy painting. So that's the end of the critique, and that's pretty much exactly what you'll receive for your painting if you purchase the service and you just upload a photo of the painting you're working on and a resource photo if you have it, and also talk about what you're trying to achieve, what you struggled with, that sort of stuff. And I'll put all of that into this personalized professional painting critique for you. So I look forward to seeing your painting.